Odyssey, Book 21. The Bow, Pedigree, Contest, Recruitment, and the Stringing. And now, the goddess put it in her mind, gray-eyed Athena, in the mind of Icarius's daughter, watchful-minded Penelope, to set before the suitors the bow and the gray iron in the halls of Odysseus, the contest and the beginning of the slaughter. She climbed the high stairway of her house and took the bent key in her strong hand, a beautiful key of bronze with an ivory handle, and went her way with her attendant women to the last storeroom. There the master's treasures lay, bronze and gold and iron wrought with labor. And there lay the back-sprung bow and the quiver for the arrows, with many groan-laden shafts inside, gifts that a guest friend gave him when they met in Lacedaemon. Iphitus, Eurydice's son, a man like the immortals. The two had crossed paths in Messene, in the house of thoughtful Ortilochus. Odysseus had come to collect a debt the whole people owed him, for Messenian men had lifted sheep out of Ithaca, 300, with their herdsmen, in their many bent ships. For their sake Odysseus came that long road on embassy, a boy still, sent out by his father and the other elders. And Iphitus came hunting horses, 12 mares he had lost, with hard-working mules that sucked beneath them, the same mares that afterward became his death and doom, when he came to the strong-hearted son of Zeus, the man Heracles, that expert in great deeds, who killed him, a guest in his own house, ruthless, no shame before the gods' watching eye, nor for the table he himself had set the man. He killed him even so, and kept the strong-hoofed mares in his own halls. Asking after these, Iphitus met Odysseus, and gave him the bow that great Eurydice carried in the old days, and left to his son at his death in the high house. And Odysseus gave him a sharp sword and a strong spear, the start of a binding friendship, but they never knew each other's tables. Before that, the son of Zeus killed Iphitus, Eurydice's son, that man like the immortals, who gave the bow. And noble Odysseus never took it with him going to war in the black ships. It stood in his halls at home, a memorial of a beloved guest friend. On his own land he carried it. And when she reached that storeroom, the shining among women, and stepped up on the oak threshold, which a carpenter once planed with skill, and trued to the line, and fixed the doorposts in it, and hung the shining doors, at once she quickly loosed the thong from the hook, slid in the key, and shot back the bolts of the doors with a straight thrust. And they bellowed like a bull at pasture in a meadow. So loud the beautiful doors bellowed at the key's stroke, and they flew open before her. She stepped up onto the high floor, where the chests stood full of clothing laid away in fragrance. Reaching up from there, she took the bow off its peg, bright in the bow case that enclosed it, with the case on her knees, and wept aloud and shrill, and drew out the master's bow. And when she had taken her fill of tear-heavy mourning, she went her way to the hall, to the lordly suitors, holding in her hand the back-sprung bow and the quiver for the arrows, with many groan-laden shafts inside. And beside her handmaids carried the box where the iron lay in plenty, and the bronze, the master's gear of contest. And when she reached the suitors, shining among women, she stood beside the pillar of the close-built roof, holding her glistening veil before her cheeks, a trusted handmaid standing on either side, and spoke at once among the suitors, and said her word. Hear me, you lordly suitors, who have fastened on this house to eat and drink your way through it, without ever a pause, its master long gone. Nor could you offer any other excuse in all this time, any word at all, except your lust to marry me and take me to wife. Well then, you suitors, come, here stands your prize before you. I set out the great bow of godlike Odysseus. Whoever strings the bow most easily in his hands and shoots an arrow through all 12 axes, him I will follow, forsaking this house of my marriage, this beautiful house, full of all that sustains life. I think I shall remember it even in my dreams. So she spoke, and told Eumaeus, the noble swineherd, to set the bow before the suitors, and the gray iron. In tears Eumaeus took them, and laid them down, and the cowherd wept on his side, when he saw the master's bow. And Antinous rebuked them, and spoke a word, and named them. Idiot rustics, brains that stop at the day's end. Wretched pair, why are you streaming tears, and stirring up the heart in the woman's breast? Her heart lies deep enough in grief already, since she lost her dear husband. Sit and feast in silence, or take your bawling outside, the two of you, and leave the bow right here, a trial for the suitors none will slip through. For I do not think this polished bow is going to be strung with ease. There is no man in this whole company, such as Odysseus was. I saw him myself, I remember it well, though I was still a witless child. So he spoke, but the heart in his breast was hoping that he would string the bow and shoot through the iron. In fact, he was to be the first to taste an arrow from the hands of blameless Odysseus, the man he was dishonoring that moment, sitting in his hall and egging on all his companions. And the sacred strength of Telemachus spoke among them. Ah, Zeus, the son of Cronos, has made me witless. My own dear mother, sensible as she is, declares she will follow another man and forsake this house, and I laugh and enjoy it with my witless heart. Come then, you suitors, since here stands your prize, a woman whose like there is not now in all Achaea, not in holy Pylos, not in Argos or Mycenae, not on Ithaca itself, not on the dark mainland, but you know that yourselves. Why should I praise my mother? Come, no dodges, no dragging it out, no more hanging back from the stringing of the bow. Let us see it, and I myself might make a trial of the bow as well, for if I string it and shoot through the iron, then it would be no grief to me that my honored mother should leave this house and follow another man, since I would stay behind man enough at last to lift my father's beautiful prizes. He spoke and flung the crimson cloak from his shoulders, rising to his full height, and put off the sharp sword from his shoulder. First he set up the axes, digging one long trench for all of them, true to a line, and stamped the earth firm round them. Amazement took every man who watched, how squarely he set them, who had never seen it before. Then he went and stood on the threshold, and began to try the bow. 3 times he set it shaking, hot to draw it home. 3 times he eased his force, hoping still in his heart to string the cord and shoot through the iron. And now, hauling a 4th time, his strength would have strung it, but Odysseus shook his head and checked him, keen as he was. And the sacred strength of Telemachus spoke among them again. Ah, so I will be a weakling and a coward all my days, or I am too young yet, and cannot trust my hands to defend a man when someone picks a quarrel first. Come then, you who are stronger than I am, come try the bow, and let us finish out the contest. So speaking, he set the bow away from him on the ground, leaning it against the joined and polished panels, with the swift arrow propped on the fine door hook there, and sat back down on the chair from which he had risen. And Antinous spoke among them, Eupeithes' son, up all you companions, in order left to right, starting from where the wine is always poured. So spoke Antinous, and his word pleased them well. And the first to rise was Leodes, the son of Onops, who was their sacrifice diviner, and always sat in the farthest corner by the beautiful mixing bowl. To him alone their reckless outrages were hateful. He was indignant at all the suitors. He now was first to take the bow and the swift arrow, and went and stood on the threshold and began to try the bow. He could not string it. Long before that, hauling, his hands gave out, his soft, unhardened hands, and he said among the suitors, Friends, I cannot bend it. Let another take it now. Many chief men this bow is going to strip of life and breath, since truly it is better far to die than live on and miss the mark we gather here for day upon day, forever, waiting on hope. Now every man of you hopes, every heart is set on marrying Penelope, Odysseus' bedmate. But once he has tried the bow, and seen, well, let him woo some other fair-robed Achaean woman with his bride gifts then, and seek her, and let this one marry the man who gives the most and comes as her fate. So he spoke his say, and set the bow away from him, leaning it against the joined and polished panels, with the swift arrow propped on the fine door hook there, and sat back down on the chair from which he had risen. And Antinous rebuked him, and spoke a word and named him. Leodes, what a word has slipped the fence of your teeth. A dreadful word, a bitter one. I am angry just to hear it, that this bow, if you please, will strip our chief men of life and breath, because you cannot string it. No, your honored mother did not bear you the kind of man who has it in him to draw a bow and shoot. But the other lordly suitors will string it, and soon. So he spoke, and gave his orders to Melanthius the goatherd. Look alive, Melanthius, light a fire in the hall, and set a big bench by it with a fleece on top, and bring out the great wheel of lard from the stores inside, so we young men can warm the bow, and grease it with the fat, and try it, and finish out the contest. So he spoke, and Melanthius quickly kindled the unwearying fire, and carried up the bench, and set it there with a fleece on it, and brought out the great wheel of lard from the stores inside. With that the young men warmed the bow, and made their trials, and still they could not string it. They fell far short of the strength it took, but Antinous still held off. And godlike Eurymachus, the suitors' chiefs, in prowess they were far the best of them. Now out of the house those two had gone together, the cowherd and the swineherd of godlike Odysseus, and after them Odysseus himself, the noble one, came out. And when they were outside the doors in the courtyard, he raised his voice and spoke to them with gentle words. Cowherd, and you swineherd, shall I say a thing to you, or keep it to myself. My heart tells me to say it. What kind of men would you be to fight for Odysseus if he came from somewhere like that out of nowhere, some god bringing him? Would you fight for the suitors or for Odysseus? Speak out as your heart and spirit bid you. Then the cowherd answered him, the master of the oxen, Father Zeus, if only you would accomplish this desire, that the man himself come back and a god guide him home, then you would learn my strength and how my hands follow it. And in the same way, Eumaeus prayed to all the gods that Odysseus of the many designs might come home to his own house. And when he had proof of the true mind in both of them, he found words again, and said to them in answer, He is home, here, I am the man myself. After suffering many pains, I have come in the 20th year to my father's land. And I know that of all my slaves, to you two only my coming is what you prayed for. Of the rest, I have heard not one man praying that I come home again. So to you two I will tell the whole truth of what shall be. If a god brings the haughty suitors down beneath my hands, I will find wives for you both, and give you possessions, and houses built near mine, and from that day you shall be to me the companions and brothers of Telemachus. And come, I will show you a plain sign besides, so you may know me for certain and trust it in your hearts, the scar, the wound the boar dealt me with its white tusk, when I went to Parnassus with the sons of Autolycus. So speaking, he drew the rags back from the great scar, and when the two had seen it, and taken in each detail, they wept, and threw their arms round thoughtful Odysseus, and kissed his head and shoulders, welcoming him home. And in the same way Odysseus kissed their heads and hands, and the light of the sun would have gone down on their weeping, had not Odysseus himself checked them, and said, Enough of weeping and wailing. Someone coming out of the hall might see, and tell them there inside, Go back in one at a time, not all together, I first, you after. And let this be the signal. All the others, all the lordly suitors will refuse to let the bow and quiver be given to me. But you, noble Eumaeus, carry the bow up the hall and set it in my hands, and tell the women to bar the close-fitted doors of their quarters, and if any one of them hears groaning or the crash of men inside our walls, let her not run out, but stay where she is, at her work, in silence. And you, noble Philetius, your charge is the courtyard gates. Bolt them with the bar, and quickly lash the fastening on. So speaking, he entered the well-settled house and went and sat on the stool from which he had risen, and then the two slaves of godlike Odysseus came in too. Eurymachus by now was handling the bow, warming it this side and that at the glow of the fire, and even so he could not string it. His proud heart groaned aloud, and bursting out in anger, he spoke a word and named it. Damn it, here is a grief for me, for myself, and for us all. It is not the marriage I mourn so much, though that stings too. There are plenty of other Achaean women, some right here in sea-circled Ithaca, some in other towns. No, it is that we fall so far short in strength of godlike Odysseus that we cannot string his bow, a disgrace for even men unborn to hear of. Then Antinous answered him, Eupeithes' son, Eurymachus, it will not stand so, and you know it yourself. Today through all the land is the feast of the god, his holy day. Who could be bending bows? No, set it down and be easy. And the axes, why not leave them standing, all of them? No one, I think, will carry them off. No thief is coming into the hall of Laertes' son Odysseus. Come, let the cupbearer pour first drops in the cups, so we can make libation and lay aside the curved bow. And in the morning tell Melanthius the goatherd to drive in goats, the pick of all his herds, so we can lay thigh pieces on the altar of Apollo, lord of the bow, and then try the bow, and finish out the contest. So spoke Antinous, and his word pleased them well. And heralds poured water over their hands, and young men crowned the mixing bowls with drink, and served it round to all, with first drops in the cups. And when they had poured and drank as much as their hearts would have, Odysseus of the many designs, with craft in mind, spoke among them, Hear me, you, suitors of the far-famed queen, while I say what the heart in my breast commands. To Eurymachus above all, and to godlike Antinous, I make my plea, since he spoke this word too as it should be. For now let the bow rest, turn it over to the gods, and in the morning the god will give the mastery to whom he will. But come, give me the polished bow, so among you I can try my hands and my strength, whether the force is still there that once lived in my supple limbs, or wandering in neglect have destroyed it by now. So he spoke, and they were all outraged past measure, in dread that he would string the polished bow. And Antinous rebuked him, and spoke a word and named him. You wretched stranger, not a grain of sense in you, not a trace. Is it not enough that you feast at your ease with us, the great ones, never stinted of the meal, listening in on all our speeches and our talk? No other stranger, no beggar, gets to listen to our speeches. It is the wine that has you, the honey sweet. It damages any man who gulps it wide-mouthed past his measure. Wine, it was wine that maddened the centaur, famous Eurytion, in the hall of great-hearted Pirithous, on his visit to the Lapiths. And when the wine had maddened his wits, raving mad he did his evil in Pirithous' house, and grief seized the heroes, and they leapt up and dragged him out through the porch to the open air, and shore away his ears and nose with the pitiless bronze, and he, his wits destroyed, went off in his witless heart, hauling his ruin with him. From that came the feud between centaurs and men, but he found the evil first for himself, heavy with wine. Just so I proclaim great trouble for you, if you should string that bow. You will meet no kindness in this land of ours. We will pack you straight off in a black ship to King XXI, the maimer of all mankind, and out of his hands nothing will save you. Sit easy, drink, and do not set yourself against younger men. Then watchful-minded Penelope answered him, Antinous, it is not fine and it is not just to stint the guests of Telemachus, whoever comes to this house. Do you think if this stranger strings the great bow of Odysseus, trusting his hands and his own strength, that he will lead me home and make me his wife? He himself has no such hope in his breast. Let none of you sit at the feast here grieving over that. It would not be seemly. No, and it is not thinkable. Then Eurymachus, Polybus' son, answered her, Daughter of Icarius, watchful-minded Penelope, it is not that we think he will lead you off. Unthinkable. But we shrink from the talk of men and women, that one of the baser Achaeans may say some day, Men far weaker are wooing a blameless man's wife, and they cannot even string his polished bow. And then some other man, a wandering beggar, came and strung the bow with ease and shot through the iron. So they will say, and for us that would be shame heaped on shame. Then watchful-minded Penelope answered him, Eurymachus, there is no fair fame in the land, and cannot be, for men who dishonor and devour the house of their better. Why count this thing your shame? The stranger here is very tall and firmly built, and declares himself the son of a well-born father. Come, give him the polished bow. Let us see it, for I will say this outright, and it will be accomplished. If he strings it, if Apollo grants him that glory, I will dress him in a cloak and a tunic, fine clothing, and give him a sharp javelin to keep off dogs and men, and a two-edged sword, and I will give him sandals for his feet, and send him wherever his heart and spirit bid him go. Then clear-headed Telemachus answered her, Mother mine, the bow, no Achaean has better right than I to give it or to refuse it to whomever I will, not one of all who lord it through rocky Ithaca, nor in the islands over toward horse-grazing Elis, not one of them shall force me against my will, not even if I choose to give the stranger this bow outright to carry off for good. Go into the house, and see to your own work, the loom and the distaff, and command your handmaids to go about their work. The bow belongs to men, to all men, and to me above all. Mine is the power in this house. In wonder she went back into the house, for she laid her son's clear-headed word to heart. Climbing to her upper room with her serving women, she wept there for Odysseus her dear husband, until gray-eyed Athena cast sweet sleep upon her eyelids. And the noble swineherd had taken up the curved bow and was carrying it. And the suitors, all of them, burst out shouting through the halls. And a man of the arrogant young men would say, Where are you carrying that curved bow, you pitiful swineherd, you drifter? Soon enough, out with your pigs, alone, away from men. The swift dogs you raised yourself will eat you, if Apollo will only be gracious to us, and the other deathless gods. So they spoke, and he set the bow down where he stood, carrying it no further, frightened, because the crowd of them was shouting through the halls. But Telemachus from the other side called out his threat, Old father, carry the bow on, you will soon be sorry, obeying them all. Watch out, or younger though I am, I will chase you into the fields, pelting you with stones. In strength I am the better man. If only I stood as far above all the suitors in this house, in force of hands and strength, I would soon send more than one of them off in misery, out of our house, for they devise evils. So he spoke, and all the suitors laughed at him sweetly, and let go their bitter anger against Telemachus. And the swineherd carried the bow up the hall, and stood by thoughtful Odysseus, and set it in his hands. Then he called out the nurse Euryclea and said, Telemachus commands you, watchful-minded Euryclea, bar the close-fitted doors of the women's hall, and if any woman hears groaning or the crash of men inside our walls, let her not run out, but stay where she is at her work in silence. So he spoke, and for her the word stayed wingless, and she barred the doors of the well-settled halls. In silence Philoetius slipped out of the house and barred the gates of the well-fenced courtyard. Under the colonnade there lay a curved ship's cable of bibelous fiber. With it he lashed the gates, and went back in, and went and sat on the stool from which he had risen, with his eyes on Odysseus. And he was handling the bow already, turning it round and round, testing it this way and that, for worms that might have eaten the horn while its master was away. And a man would say, with a glance at his neighbor, quite the connoisseur of bows, an expert eye, a thief's, no doubt he has bows like this one laid up at home, or means to make one. Look how he turns it over, this way and that, the vagrant schooled in trouble. And another of the arrogant young men would say, may all his profit in life come out exactly as his luck in ever managing to string that thing. So the suitors talked, but Odysseus of the many designs, the moment he had hefted the great bow, and eyed it everywhere as when a man skilled in the lyre and in singing easily stretches a string around a new peg, making the twisted sheep-gut fast at either end, so without haste, without effort, Odysseus strung the great bow. Then his right hand took hold, and tried the string, and under his touch it sang sweet, like a swallow's voice. A great ache took the suitors, the color changed in every face, and Zeus thundered loud, showing his signs. And much enduring noble Odysseus was glad that the son of crooked-counseled Cronos sent him an omen, and he took up the swift arrow that lay bare on the table beside him. The rest were stored inside the hollow quiver, the ones the Achaeans were shortly going to taste. He set it on the bridge of the bow, drew back the string and the notched butt from the very stool where he sat, and let the arrow fly with a straight aim, and did not miss a single axe. From the first helve ring clean on through, the arrow heavy with bronze passed through and out. And he said to Telemachus, Telemachus, the guest who sits in your halls does not disgrace you. I did not miss the mark, and I was not long about stringing the bow. My strength stands yet unbroken, not as the suitors' taunts would have it, in their disrespect. But now it is time that supper too be made for the Achaeans, while there is light, and after that the other entertainments, the dance and the lyre, for these are the garnish of a feast. He spoke and signaled with his brows, and he slung on his sharp sword, Telemachus, the dear son of godlike Odysseus, and closed his hand around his spear, and there beside him, close by his chair, he stood, armed in the flashing bronze.